My sister booked her wedding on the same day as mine. My parents said, "It's important for her." I screamed, "What about my future?" They stayed silent. As we cut the cake, my phone lighted up with a message from my mother. "We need to discuss now." This was followed by 43 missed calls. The title pretty much says it all. But brace up, because this story has it all. Family treachery, gold mining gone horribly wrong, and retribution so flawlessly performed that it should be taught in business school. This is a long one, but I assure that every word is worth reading. Grab some popcorn. Quick history on myself because context is critical for understanding what happens next. My name is Michael and I am 30 years old, although this nuclear explosion occurred when I was 27. I'm a construction project manager that started from nothing and worked tirelessly to get to where I am now. I grew up in a firmly middle-class environment, where my parents continually taught the value of hard work and earning everything via honest effort. Instead of attending college, I went to a vocational school. Started as a simple worker earning the minimum pay. I worked my way through every position possible: electrical work, plumbing, general contracting, construction supervision, and quality control. My sister Emily is 2 years younger and has never worked a genuine day in her fortunate life. She realized early on that being conventionally gorgeous and understanding how to emotionally manipulate others takes you far further than genuine work, aptitude, or skill development. I've been jumping between affluent lovers since high school, constantly looking for the next financial upgrade and bigger bank account. My parents adored this trend since she frequently brought home males with outstanding wages and prominent work titles that made them appear attractive socially. My wife Olivia and I have been together for 7 years, after meeting in an evening class at a community college. She's a qualified nurse who sincerely wants to serve others and has worked extremely hard to achieve her success. We both sacrificed and battled for years to get what we now have via meticulous preparation and discipline. There are no freebies, trust funds, or wealthy relatives writing checks. Only pure resolve, honest effort, and sound financial judgments. This is a thorough account of how my whole family selected my sister's superficial bullshit over my wedding day, and how I made them regret their decision in ways they never believed imaginable. 2 years ago, I was busy organizing my wedding to Olivia. We'd been engaged for 8 months and managed to save $17,000 for a beautiful ceremony through diligent budgeting and working additional hours. Nothing extravagant or out of the ordinary, but we wanted our special day to be memorable and meaningful for everybody involved. We issued comprehensive save-the-dates in January for our September 14th wedding. Emily had been dating an investment banker called Ethan for around 5 months by this time. This guy symbolized everything my parents had ever hoped their daughter would bring home. MBA from a renowned university. Drives a fancy BMW worth more than most people's annual wage. Works at a large financial business downtown, earning well over $190,000 per year plus hefty incentives. Emily was already sharing really cringeworthy Instagram images of them at nice restaurants with phrases like, "When he treats you like the queen, you deserve to be," along with crown and diamond emojis and hashtags about living her best life. Here's all you need to know about Emily's role in our family dynamics. She has always been the uncontested golden child, and not in a subtle or quiet way. She has had complete royal care since birth. When I graduated from trade school with honors and got my first professional project management job, my folks replied, "That's nice, honey," and promptly shifted the subject. When Emily finished with a communications degree despite changing courses 3 times, they planned a lavish graduation party and spent months boasting to everyone they knew about their extremely talented daughter. She also lacks actual intelligence, but has convinced herself that she is a skilled manipulator who uses everyone around her as puppets. The sort of person who honestly feels she is playing advanced mental chess while in reality she is simply moving checkers about the board with no clear strategy. Emily reveals with much hoopla in July, exactly 2 months before my meticulously planned wedding, that Ethan proposed to her over an expensive rooftop supper that most likely cost more than my monthly rent. Isn't this an absolutely startling development? But this is where the scenario becomes utterly nuts, and my blood pressure rises. She immediately begins arranging this enormous over-the-top engagement party, and purposefully chose September 14th as the date, the same day as my wedding, which had been planned, advertised, and saved for more than 8 months. When I confronted her directly about this obvious and deliberate conflict, she simply shrugged her shoulders and said, "Oh, I didn't even realize there was a problem with that date." But Ethan's parents are flying in from the West Coast, and this is literally the only weekend that works for everyone who matters in our lives. Everyone who really matters. Just let that statement soak in and consider what she was actually saying. My mother immediately began her standard, "Can't you guys work this out among yourselves?" routine. Like I should definitely consider delaying my wedding, which we'd been diligently planned and saving for, simply because Princess Emily suddenly need that precise date for her engagement party. I carefully explained that it was only an engagement party. Those can occur at any moment during the year. Weddings are intended to be once-in-a-lifetime events that families plan for. Emily rolled her eyes at me, as if I was being overly theatrical. Alex, you're becoming very emotional about this. We aren't just having a random party. Ethan's father is a senior partner at the business, and this event will be attended by all of their most significant clients. This might be extremely important for Ethan's job progress and our future together. Your wedding will be attended only by family members and school buddies, just family and schoolmates. In her self-centered viewpoint, my wedding was discarded as nothing more. The absolute worst aspect of the entire affair. My parents instantly nodded heartily, as if she were making excellent logical sense rather than being absolutely selfish. 6 weeks before my wedding, instead of the ecstatic affirmations I expected, I began receiving unusual evasive comments from various family members. Instead of just confirming their presence, as most people do at family weddings, everyone kept saying vague things like, "We'll see how everything develops." Or, "We're still trying to figure out our schedule situation." Which made no sense. My best man, James, who I've known since middle school and consider to be my closest friend, contacts me one evening and says he has to talk to me about something very important. His tone was strange and unpleasant. Emily had been texting him behind my back for weeks, trying to convince him that I was being completely unreasonable and selfish about the date conflict situation and that, as my closest friend, he should help persuade me to be more flexible and understanding about the whole thing. During the wedding preparation process, she attempted to turn my best man against me. The breaking point came when my father contacted me one evening and said, "Look son, your sister's engagement party is genuinely important for her future prospects and financial security. Perhaps you and Olivia could consider moving your wedding back a few months. You're both already established and steady in your jobs." I lost my cool and began raising my voice. "Dad, are you honestly asking me to postpone my wedding so Emily may have her engagement party on the same day? This isn't just any random party, Michael. It's all about Emily's future financial security and social status. Ethan comes from an excellent family with business connections that could set them up for life financially. What about my life, Dad? What about my future and what matters to me and Olivia?" There was this really long, uncomfortable pause where I could hear him thinking, "You're already doing well for yourself, son. You've created your job, you're financially secure and self-sufficient. Emily needs this chance more than you need a large wedding ceremony." That's when I understood I was hopelessly screwed in this familial dynamic. In their twisted imaginations, my sister's blatant social rising was far more vital and important than my marriage to the woman I adored. 3 weeks before my wedding, all of the RSVP answers arrived in the mail. My parents, Emily, both sets of grandparents, my uncles and aunts, and nearly every other member of my extended family had formally denied my wedding invitation with polite reasons. They were all going to attend Emily's engagement celebration rather than my wedding. Even James, my putative best man and boyhood buddy, phoned me 2 days before the wedding to abruptly cancel. "I'm really sorry, man, but Emily makes some valid points about this situation. This could be genuinely important for their future together financially, and your wedding will still be meaningful and special with Olivia's family there to support you." I wanted to reach through the phone and physically shake him until his teeth came free. My wedding day turned out to be both the finest and worst day of my life up until that moment. Olivia looked very gorgeous and glowing in her outfit. Her family was very friendly and helpful throughout the procedure. Despite everything, our true friends that turned up made it truly unique and unforgettable. But there was a large gaping empty section where my purportedly loving family should have been seated and celebrating with us at this significant milestone. Olivia's father even offered to accompany me down the aisle because my own father preferred an engagement party over his son's wedding day. When he said, "I'm truly honored to call you my son," just before we reached the altar, I nearly burst into tears in front of everyone. During the reception party that followed, I kept constantly checking my phone, like an emotional masochist who couldn't stop poking at a wound. Emily had been sharing Instagram tales from her party all evening long. Exquisite ice sculptures, delicious culinary settings, live musical entertainment, and expert photography are the absolute works. She even shared a video of Ethan delivering a poignant speech about how he felt immensely privileged and glad to be joining such a lovely, caring family. My family, the same family who couldn't be bothered to go to their son's wedding because they had anything else to do. 3 months after my wedding, my grandpa on my mother's side died unexpectedly while sleeping. He was 89 years old and had been slowly deteriorating for some months. So no one was especially surprised by the death. What transpired during the official will reading ceremony stunned everyone and caused considerable family conflict. It turned out that my grandfather had been paying far more attention to our family dynamics than anyone had previously known or given him credit for. He left me his entire house, a stunning 4-bedroom craftsman-style home in one of town's most desired districts, properly valued for $475,000. He also gave me his totally restored vintage automobile collection, which included 3 classic Mustangs that he had personally worked on in his garage for decades, as well as an $80,000 life insurance policy that I had no knowledge about. Dear Emily, he left behind his own book collection and a $2,500 government savings bond that had sat undisturbed for years. The family attorney read this information out in front of our entire family, and I witnessed Emily's face change from smug assurance to full amazement to pure wrath in a matter of seconds. Her mouth actually dropped open. "That's completely impossible," she said loudly. "Grandpa always told me that I was his favorite grandchild and that he was preparing something special for me." The attorney merely glanced down at his professional paperwork, emotionless. Mr. Patterson was quite clear and detailed about his dying desires. He really updated his whole will just before his death. Later, I found through my cousin Sophia that my grandfather had updated everything exactly 2 weeks after my wedding day. The wise old guy had meticulously kept track of who showed up when it genuinely meant most to the people they professed to love. My parents were furious about this development and continued complaining about unfairness. However, because everything was adequately documented, they had no legal recourse. So there I was at 30 years old, married to an absolutely great woman who supported my aspirations, living in a $475,000 property I owned outright, with 3 valuable classic automobiles and a lot of money in the bank. But rather than simply sitting on this unexpected windfall, as some people may do, I took the strategic decision to use it as a strong basis for something far greater and more meaningful for our future. My first significant move was selling one of the Mustangs for $38,000 to a collector who'd been admiring it for years, and I used the proceeds, together with the life insurance payoff, to make down payments on 2 well-positioned rental homes in up-and-coming areas. The real estate market in our neighborhood was just starting to heat up, and I was able to buy in just before prices skyrocketed. At my normal work, I was already doing well as a project manager and had acquired the respect of my colleagues. But now I had the courage and the resources to take considerably larger professional risks. On weekends and nights, I launched my own construction consulting firm, focusing in project management services for large-scale commercial renovations and new construction projects. With a fully paid-off property, I was able to take on contracts with longer payment schedules and drastically undercut the cost of more established organizations while keeping excellent profit margins. Within 18 months of establishing my side business, it was earning more money than my normal work at the construction firm. I exited the firm on good terms and went full-time with my own business. By the end of year 2, I was earning roughly $195,000 per year and owned 4 distinct rental properties that generated consistent passive income every month without requiring any hands-on maintenance. Olivia and I were indeed enjoying our absolute ideal life together. We traveled extensively to locations we'd only read about previously, threw lavish dinner parties for friends and colleagues at our lovely home, and began serious discussions about establishing a family in the near future. Meanwhile, my biological family had written me off totally as the ungrateful son who had just gotten lucky with a fortune he didn't deserve and would most likely mismanage. They had no idea that I was methodically documenting and recording everything that transpired with our family dynamics. Every disparaging remark said about me behind my back. Every family function I was not invited to. Every social media post in which Emily boasted about her opulent lifestyle while taking subtle but deliberate jabs at my personality and life choices. Because Emily's engagement to Ethan was revealing some severe structural flaws that were becoming increasingly difficult to conceal from the public eye. Ethan had imagined he was receiving a low-maintenance trophy bride who would appreciate his financial support and would not make unreasonable demands. But Emily is extremely high maintenance, bordering on insane. She quickly resigned her part-time administrative position. She had never taken her employment seriously, and she expected him to pay her whole lifestyle without inquiry or complaint. We are talking about $600 meals many times each week, shopping sprees that cost more than most people's monthly rent payments, and an $80,000 premium Mercedes SUV for her birthday that she said was practical. Ethan was clearly making good money in his investment banking job, but Emily was methodically depleting it more quicker than he could earn it, even with his generous bonuses. And, unlike the trust fund kids she had previously dated, Ethan had to work exceedingly hard for every single dollar he made, which taught him the value of money. My cousin Sophia, who was literally the only family member who kept in touch with me after the wedding fiasco, would give me detailed updates on how Emily was systematically draining Ethan's savings account and how my parents were becoming increasingly concerned that their golden goose was getting tired of being plucked clean. By the time I was 31, my company was shattering every performance statistic conceivable and outperforming my wildest aspirations. I'd successfully grown operations into 3 other regional markets, hired 12 full-time employees whom I treated well and paid competitively, and was on course to earn $320,000 that year before taxes. Olivia and I paid cash for a gorgeous lake cottage as a weekend hideaway, and were having more serious conversations about establishing a family within the following year. Meanwhile, Emily's seemingly flawless fairy tale existence was methodically collapsing, and she was much too oblivious and self-absorbed to notice the calamity approaching like a freight train. Ethan had been working much longer hours and traveling much more frequently for business objectives, which Emily took as his unwavering commitment to establishing their financial future together. In actuality, Sophia informed me during our monthly coffee dates that he was frantically dreading coming home since Emily had become totally unbearable to live with on a daily basis and would continually harass him about money. She changed into one of those utter nightmare fiancés who truly felt that wedding preparation entailed spending an infinite amount of someone else's money with no boundaries, restraints, or regard for financial reality. The location she had determined she really required for their dream wedding cost $55,000, only for the basic room rental charge, which did not include catering, decor, or any other services. Her dream wedding dress cost $9,000 from a designer store. She envisioned a lavish 3-week honeymoon in Europe that would cost over $28,000, including first-class flights, luxury lodgings, and exquisite dining experiences. Emily's carefully produced presentation during their first encounters had originally impressed Ethan's parents, but they were beginning to see through the surface act she had been maintaining. At family dinners, she'd make passive-aggressive remarks about how certain individuals didn't appreciate the value of investing in relationships, as well as keeping suitable social appearances and community status. The breaking point came over a Christmas dinner at my parents' place, which I was not invited to since I was now persona non grata. Sophia discreetly videotaped sections of the chat on her phone and emailed me the footage later that evening, knowing I'd be curious to see what I was missing. Emily was conspicuously displaying her engagement ring, 4.5 diamonds and $45,000 according to her continual bragging on social media and passionately discussing expensive wedding preparations in great detail. When Ethan's mother posed what appeared to be an innocent inquiry, "What kind of work does Emily do professionally these days?" the dining room went completely silent. You could hear a pin drop. Emily then laughed dismissively and stated, "Oh, I'm presently considering professional options while focusing on our relationship." Ethan and I mutually decided it would be much better for me to focus entirely on planning our life together rather than getting distracted by some meaningless job. Ethan's facial expression in that video was absolutely priceless and worth watching multiple times, as you could literally see the exact moment he realized his fiancée had just openly admitted to being a professional gold digger in front of his parents and extended family. Emily's wedding was officially scheduled for June 12, exactly 2 years after my own modest celebration. Unlike my carefully budgeted ceremony that focused on meaning over materialism, this was going to be a $125,000 spectacular extravaganza funded entirely by Ethan and his increasingly concerned family members. I met a forensic accountant who specializes in conducting financial investigations for family law cases and divorce proceedings through my expanding business network and professional associations, and we developed a genuine friendship through a professional association. During one of our regular coffee conversations, I casually mentioned my sister's increasingly problematic financial situation. "Your sister sounds like a real piece of work," he said thoughtfully after I described her spending habits. Exactly the type of woman who would systematically drain someone's accounts and disappear if she thought she could get away with it without consequences. That conversation sparked an idea that would eventually change everything for everyone involved in this family drama. I began systematically documenting Emily's spending habits using her own proudly posted social media content as evidence. Every expensive dinner she boasted about attending, every elaborate shopping trip she documented with photos, and every luxury vacation she photographed and posted online with detailed captions. Emily had been consistently living a lifestyle that cost around $9,000 per month for the past 20 months of her engagement. I created an extremely detailed spreadsheet tracking her lifestyle costs based entirely on her own evidence and constant bragging about her lavish lifestyle, and the results were absolutely staggering when compiled and objectively analyzed. I'd been keeping track of Ethan's career advancement through various industry connections and professional contacts in the financial sector, so my plan was nearly foolproof. It was entirely funded by Ethan's earnings and savings, with no contribution from her. The big promotion Emily was constantly bragging about to justify her extravagant spending was never going to happen, according to my sources. His company had been struggling with major market changes and regulatory pressures, and there were serious rumors of significant layoffs coming soon to cut costs. 2 months before the wedding, I began making carefully calculated strategic moves that would set everything in motion. First, I contacted Ethan's father through legitimate business channels and professional networking, introducing myself as a fellow professional and expressing my genuine concern about some troubling industry rumors regarding Ethan's firm's overall financial stability and future prospects in the current market. "You've heard about Meridian Capital's major problems too?" He immediately responded with obvious concern. "We're becoming increasingly concerned about Ethan's position. He's been quite secretive about work problems lately, and some of Emily's statements contradict what we've heard from other credible industry connections." I planted just enough legitimate concern to get him asking all the right questions without seeming suspicious. Second, I reached out to a guy I knew who worked directly at Ethan's company in a different department, and without ever mentioning my personal connection to Emily, I asked general questions about the firm's stability, claiming to be considering some potential business partnerships with them. "Honestly, I'd strongly recommend staying far away from any deals with them," he cautioned me. "We have had 3 significant layoff cycles in the last year alone. The partners are losing money quickly, and Ethan has been on very thin ice for months. He'll most likely be gone before the summer, according to workplace gossip." Everything was falling into place perfectly, according to my plan. 3 weeks before Emily's elaborate wedding, which she'd been obsessively planning for months, the perfect storm struck with devastating force, changing everything. Ethan was laid off completely from his investment banking position. Emily had no idea what had happened because Ethan was too embarrassed and terrified to tell her the truth about their financial situation. Not only was he fired for poor performance, but his entire division was eliminated as part of a massive company. Restructuring and downsizing to cut costs. Emily had been counting on his $210,000 annual salary, substantial bonus structure, and valuable stock options. He had been frantically putting wedding expenses on multiple credit cards for months, hoping to land another comparable position before anyone discovered his true financial situation and the house of cards collapsed. This was my perfect moment to strike decisively and execute the plan I'd been developing. I created a completely anonymous email account and sent Ethan's father a comprehensive analysis of Emily's documented spending over the past 2 years. I included detailed screenshots of her social media posts constantly bragging about expensive purchases, luxury restaurant visits, designer shopping sprees, and elaborate vacation trips. The report clearly demonstrated that Emily had been systematically burning through approximately $165,000 of Ethan's money each year on pure lifestyle expenses and status symbols with no regard for their actual financial situation. I included a carefully worded note stating that I was a concerned business associate who believed the family should be fully aware of the financial situation before making any major commitments or investments. Ethan's father immediately forwarded this detailed information to Ethan with an urgent message stating that they needed to have an emergency family meeting about Emily's spending habits and their growing concerns about the upcoming marriage and financial obligations. Meanwhile, Sophia informed me that Ethan's mother had been conducting her own investigation and discovered that Emily had been actively telling people that Ethan had been promoted to partner, which was completely false, and that they were seriously looking at houses in the $900,000 range, which was absolutely impossible given their current financial situation. The final confrontation occurred at what was supposed to be their final wedding planning meeting with vendors. Ethan arrived with both parents and presented Emily with printed bank statements, clearly showing he'd accumulated $50,000 in credit card debt funding her lifestyle demands. His father presented the comprehensive spending analysis I'd provided. "Emily," Ethan said, his voice shaking with emotion and stress, "we need to postpone the wedding indefinitely until we can figure out our financial situation and get back on stable ground." According to Sophia, who later heard every single detail from my mother, Emily completely and utterly lost her mind in spectacular fashion. She started screaming about how they couldn't postpone because everything was already planned and paid for with money Ethan didn't have. She accused Ethan's parents of being jealous of her success and happiness, and that they were purposefully sabotaging the wedding because they never thought she was good enough for their precious son. Then Ethan unleashed the nuclear bomb, which annihilated everything. "Emily, I lost my job a month ago. We cannot afford this wedding. We cannot afford your lifestyle. We can't afford anything you've been planned." Emily's response was pure gold and revealed her true character. "So, get another job right away. This is my special day, and I'm not going to cancel it because you can't handle your career responsibilities." Ethan walked out immediately, followed by his parents. The wedding planner gathered her materials and left without saying anything else. And the $125,000 wedding that was supposed to take place in 3 weeks was completely destroyed and over. Emily had to move back in with my parents after Ethan kicked her out of his apartment and changed the locks, and the wedding venue kept the entire $17,000 deposit in accordance with their contract terms. As an outside observer, I watched the aftermath from a safe distance, and it was breathtaking. The caterer kept another $8,500 for food that would never be served, and Emily was stuck with a $9,000 wedding gown she'd never wear, as well as approximately $33,000 in other deposits and payments that were completely non-refundable according to the contract she'd signed. But the story gets much better from there, and I was just getting started with my revenge. Within a week of the wedding cancellation, Ethan's parents sent Emily an official legal demand letter for $78,000, representing everything they had invested in the wedding, which had now been completely lost due to Emily's unreasonable financial expectations and irresponsible behavior. They had receipts for everything. Emily had no savings and had never held a legitimate job in her adult life. She tried desperately to get Ethan back with tearful phone calls and apologies, but he had already started dating a co-worker who was a certified financial planner with her own apartment and a fully funded retirement account. My parents, who had tolerated Emily's entitled behavior for years without consequence, suddenly found themselves supporting a 29-year-old daughter with no job, no savings, no boyfriend, and lifestyle expectations they couldn't possibly afford to maintain on their retirement income. That's when the increasingly desperate phone calls to me began coming in on a daily basis. First, my mother spoke in a guilt-tripping tone. "Michael, I know things have been strained between us lately, but Emily is really struggling right now and needs family support. Perhaps you could assist her find work with one of your business contacts. You now know successful individuals." I immediately dialed voicemail and did not even listen to the entire message. Then my father said in an authoritative tone, "Son, I know we haven't always agreed on everything, but family is family, and we stick together. Emily made some mistakes in judgment, but she has learnt from the experience. Maybe you could lend her some money to help her get stable and back on her feet." I listened to voicemail, savoring the solitude. Finally Emily called, screaming hysterically, "Michael, I know I made awful errors and wounded you deeply. I know I wasn't supportive of your wedding situation and I apologize for everything, but I'm your sister, and I really need assistance. Ethan's parents have threatened legal action, and I don't know what to do. Could you kindly assist me get through this difficult period?" I opted to answer this phone because I wanted to hear her beg. "Hey Emily." "Oh, thank God, Michael. I was terrified you wouldn't speak to me anymore. Look, I understand that the wedding date situation became problematic, and sentiments were hurt, but it is all in the past now. I really need—" "Stop talking immediately." "What? I do not comprehend." I told to halt. "Here's exactly what will happen. You're going to acquire a job, a real one where you can work for money and be paid. You're going to repay Ethan's parents every dime you owe them. And you're going to do all of this without any support from me." "But Michael, I do not understand why you are being so rude. We are family. Grandpa left you all of that money. You have a profitable business. You could easily—" "Let me stop you right there. Grandpa handed me the inheritance since I attended his funeral while you were shopping. You remember where you were that day, using Ethan's credit card in the mall. He left me that money because he realized that I had achieved something valuable in my life through hard effort. That's not fair. I didn't know Grandpa was keeping track of who." "Of course you did not know. You never pay attention to anything that does not immediately benefit you, just as you did when you purposefully booked your engagement party on my wedding day after I had publicized the date months in advance." Long, uncomfortable stillness in which I could hear her breathing. "Look," she continued, shifting into the manipulative tone she'd cultivated since infancy. "I realize I've made some errors in the past, but I'm your baby sister. Don't you want me to be satisfied and successful? Do you mean I don't want you to be comfortable without having earned it? No, Emily. I honestly do not want that for you anymore. Thank you, Emily. I am practically begging you and swallowing my pride. I will do everything you want of me. Here is what you can do. Get a job at a retail store, a restaurant, or any other place that will hire someone with no genuine work experience or valuable abilities. Move into a little apartment that you paid for with your own money. And maybe in a few years, once you've demonstrated your ability to operate as a responsible adult, we can talk about starting a relationship again. But what should I tell people? Ethan's parents are suing me, and all of my friends will know. This is really unpleasant and degrading. Emily, welcome to the consequences." Emily eventually found work folding clothes at a mall department store, earning $13 per hour. She moved into a tiny one-bedroom apartment with a roommate and drives a 2010 Honda Civic she purchased from a used car lot. When I hung up, I felt better than I had in years. She's only had 4 dates in 10 months, all with men who can't or won't afford the lifestyle she used to demand, and most of her old friends stopped hanging out with her when the money ran out and she couldn't afford to go out anymore. Her Instagram feed has shifted from boasting about her luxurious lifestyle to generic inspirational quotes that no one believes or engages with. My parents have started contacting me again, but only because they need advice on their retirement planning, and they've realized I know a thing or two about money management. Ethan got a job at a smaller firm with a salary of around $140,000, and he proposed to the financial planner. They're planning a small wedding that they're paying for themselves, with no family drama. Last month, James, my former best man, sent me a long apologetic text, saying he didn't understand the full situation, and asking if we could meet up to talk things through. I never responded and deleted his phone number. Olivia and I recently purchased a second vacation property in Costa Rica and plan to start trying for our first child next year. My business is expected to make $400,000 this year, and I'm thinking about expanding into 2 more markets. I never gave Emily a dime throughout her ordeal, not even when Ethan's parents sued her and she had to settle for $38,000 over 5 years, or when she was evicted from her first apartment for failing to pay rent. Last month, Olivia and I went to our friend Mike's wedding at a beautiful downtown venue, which was the absolute best part of the whole thing. When my parents suggested that I help my family during difficult times, I reminded them that family is supposed to attend weddings and important life events. Emily didn't notice me, but I saw her clearly throughout the evening. She had her hair pulled back in a regulation ponytail, was dressed in a black uniform polo shirt and slacks, and was carrying trays of appetizers to guests celebrating someone else's perfect day while earning minimum wage plus tips. Life has a great sense of justice and irony at times. And sometimes the most satisfying retribution isn't ruining someone's life personally, but rather stepping back and letting them trash their own while you construct something incredible and watch from afar.